People don't know the history that we have together.
They don't know our history, Dan.
They don't know our history. They know that I am obviously part of the Elite Builders. I rep the brand every time I sit in front of this mic. But maybe they don't know the origination and the origin of the Elite Builders. So we are sitting with the originator, the creator of the Elite Builders, Mr. Aaron Novello.
I'm aware I've pulled you aside at various times, and I'll be like, hey, and you're like, what? I'm like, I'm just making this up. You know that, right? Like, as we're doing it in real time, you know what I mean?
We've worked together. We started working together, I think, 2016, maybe? something like that? 15,
something
16,
like that.
somewhere in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So almost a decade. And many don't know. I mean, I've shared that my story is one of, I was, very low at one low point. You met me at my low point. And then we've kind of worked our way up from there. I share that to say, you also have had an evolution from where you were to where you are to really where you're going. We're going to get into that.
Sure.
So what I would want to start with is, okay, we started working together in 2016. I was living in my parents' basement. When we met, I think when we met each other, I was coming either in that or coming out of it, but completely lacking skills, concepts, successes in any kind of good decisions in any kind of a financial way. I was not making good decisions.
I mean, I would propose that you were, hardworking, you're ambitious, you're smart. You just, perhaps from a kind of judgment perspective, were making decisions that weren't kind of long-term oriented. They were very short-term oriented. And yes, that had kind of combined with some external factors that you didn't have complete control over, because I know you were in the lending industry and that whole thing melted down. And then with, a choice that you made in terms of where to allocate some resources that resulted in you being in your parents' basement in your 30s. Yeah. And living on a couch and maybe making, I don't know, I think it was like $30K or something at the time. And it's really just a testament to the fact that I think a lot of people who find themselves in those situations or dynamics, they can begin to imagine that something's wrong with them and not really realizing that it's really like an issue of proximity. I've had many different people in my life, probably a handful and counting, that have made a very meaningful kind of difference in my life, and proximity to them has caused me to, become the person that I am today and continue to become, because it's a never-ending, nonstop process. So I'm just fortunate enough to be kind of a part of that story for you and to be one of those guides that helped you to, make some different decisions, get some different mental maps, acquire some different skills. And yes, now you're in a completely different situation and place.
Yes. And so the differences between you and I in that realm is I just happened to meet mentors, you being one of them, later in life. You met yours earlier in life. How old were you when you met? I'm imagining you're talking first. Are we talking Rick or are we talking Neil?
Yeah, I think it started really in college, in that like my family of origin, they're kind and really doing the best that they could under the kind of circumstances and information that they were kind of aware of. Yeah. Really in a survival kind of mindset and mode. And, I think you have two responses to that. One is to kind of say, okay, like this is the way it is. The second is like, hey, this is unacceptable to me. And that was really my response, was the second. So I didn't know what the way was, but I was either going to find the way or make the way for my experience to be different. And I started to really seek out guides that because you either, have time or you have money. And at the time I didn't have any money, so I had time. Yeah. And what was an inexpensive way for me to get proximity to different thinking and to different guides was reading. And that was interesting because, truthfully, I didn't read a book to completion until I was like a senior in high school, because I would always just read the Cliff Notes. And it was like Super Fudge was the first book I ever read from like start to finish.
God.
And the second was Harry Potter. You know what I mean? So but I had a professor in community college really kind of put me on to reading And it allowed me to get proximity to different thinking, different mental maps, different approaches, and really guides. Because it's kind of like, imagine you could sit down with someone who has produced favorable outcomes in an area that you wish to produce outcomes. And they're like, hey, I'm going to tell you everything I did right, all the mistakes I made, all of my kind of key concepts and key habits, and it's $20. Would you be like, well, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of expensive. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. I started to really, kind of go down that path of seeking out guides in that realm first. That ended up graduating to, guides that I could seek out in the physical form in terms of getting proximity to the actual guide themselves. And that came in the way of paying, to get access, whether it's coaching and training. And that's a process that I've continued to cultivate and pour into, right? So I've been professionally coached since I'm 26 years old. I'm 44 today. I still have guides in my life that help me from a business perspective, help me with taxes, help me with, kind of the spiritual side of things, help me with my body. And it's the ultimate hack is to find out somebody who's producing the outcome that you want and getting proximity to them so they can show you how they do what they do and give you access to the way that they think, because that allows them to do what they do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of us, really. I was not getting favorable outcomes. I was trying to do things on my own because I didn't have proximity to people that were really successful in the financial world. I had proximity to people in the spiritually, and even mentally and physically. Physically started in high school. My best friend who moved in with me when his mother threw him out in high school moved in with us. Mm-hmm. And he was a gym rat. And he taught me all about the body and ended up being a state trooper. So I had physical early and I had spiritual early. I did not in any way have financial early. So hence your foundation is, okay, you're going to make a decision, not a good one. Then maybe an okay one, then not a good one. So your foundation that I'm building of myself is of questionable decisions that ended up culminating with, all right, now you're in your mid-30s. It all came crashing down. You got to move back home.
Yeah, and I think that...
So you had it at an early age, that's a testament to you. God bless.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Come on, man.
Yeah, at like 20, like in my early 20s is when I started going down that path. But it was more so moving away from like pain. You know what I mean? Like not wanting that to be the experience of people in my life or anybody who would be dependent upon me. And I think that you can learn two things from people. You can learn how to do something and you can learn how not to do something. And they're both equally as valuable. Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing that, it's a shame that people who royally screw things up, don't do seminars.
Yeah.
Like if there was a seminar, like, hey, here's all the ways I screwed up my marriage. Like I'd be in the front row taking notes because I don't want to do that. Right. So, and I think that kind of seeking out information and really trying to major in majors, not major in minors. So I think you would agree with this, again, because we've known each other for so long. A previous iteration of you majored in minors a lot.
Yes.
And as such, that leads to a particular destination. And what happened over time, I remember one of our first coaching calls. I'm like, hey, bro, what are you reading right now? You're like, dude, I haven't read a book in like, you're like, I don't even remember last time I read a book. I was like, where'd you get that idea?
Yeah. Who sold you that bill of goods?
Yeah. I'm like, who sold you on that being like a good plan? And you were like, just silent, like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, it's not a good plan, So you got to be constantly pouring things into your head, right? Mm-hmm. And then you personally started down this path, and I know that you did and continue to, in terms of pouring into yourself and reading and seeking out mental maps that you can stack on top of reality to figure out what's true, which will make you a better decision maker. It'll make you kind of a better steward. It will allow you to have better judgment, right, in the long term. And it allows you to major in majors, the things that are important. So I would propose the things that are important is like specialized knowledge, which is how to do something, right? And usually, almost always, with specialized knowledge, you can't learn it in like school, because if you could, like, Naval says if you need a degree to do it, you're probably not going to make that much money because you're easily replaceable.
Yeah.
So it's acquiring specialized knowledge. For us in our chosen profession, it's what to say and how to say it, like the skill of selling.
Yeah.
The second thing we need is like tools. So we need the best tools, CRMs, things of that nature. The third thing we need is leverage. And that is the leverage of labor, the leverage of capital, the leverage of media, and then like software. But the fourth thing that we need, which I think is radically overlooked, is good judgment. And, up until we connected, and I want you to really hear me. Like, I'm not.
You can say it, brother. Dude. There's no need to mince words.
Yeah, well, I don't want to take. Yeah, I had the easy part. You had the hard part. But like, up until that moment, that was really. It was a little bit of both. It was kind of the specialized knowledge in the realm of, let's say, sales, and also the specialized knowledge in the realm of kind of finance, because you were just kind of winging that. Like,
well, I was flipping. Remember at the time I was flipping.
Yeah, and you viewed that as like investing, when in fact, like, that's actually like, speculating. Like, so really were unclear with regards to what you were actually doing. And so you lack specialized knowledge there. And then there was an issue of kind of judgment, like long term, like what's the best kind of things to be stacking time on top of. And, I love the kind of quote that, like, God feeds the birds, but he doesn't put worms in their mouth. So it's like up to us to like equip ourselves with what we need in order to be able to produce the favorable outcomes that we want in the physical world as it pertains to like business and money and things of that nature. So,
yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I started to do, obviously, when you brought that up about reading, was I started to read. And I mean, the books that are behind me, those are books that I've read.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of them are dictionaries and stuff, but for the most part, I've read every book on that bookshelf. I mean, I have a stack next to me of like books that are once a year reads.
Yeah.
That have just been a huge impact on my life. I mean, probably the one that is the most is Mastery. This is this was the book that when you really are faced, when someone puts in front of you something about you that is true, that's a negative quality, you can do one of two things. You can get angry and think negatively of the person saying it, or you can actually take a step back, analyze what they're saying, and then agree. You know what? That's what I'm doing, and I got to change it.
Sure.
The three in this was a dabbler.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a fair statement.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And I think that it's accurate for most, right? So, the dabbler is someone who gets very kind of excited about new beginnings. They get excited about new sports, new relationships. They get excited about, kind of new sources of business, new CRMs.
Yes.
They go to maybe an event and they get all pumped up and excited. And they actually experience a small burst initially of, let's say, growth or improvement. And what's interesting is the moment that they hit a plateau, they invariably begin to say things like, well, maybe this sport isn't for me. Maybe this relationship isn't the right one. Maybe, this lead source isn't for me. Maybe outbound prospecting is not my thing. And as a result, they end up just repeating the process and finding something new to get excited about. And, the main takeaway from that book, which is something that you've, kind of internalized and continue to practice, and sometimes still requiring some conversations around practicing it, is that if you're on the road to mastery, pretty much the majority of that road is on plateaus.
Yes.
And it's learning to embrace those plateaus and recognize that that's really what is true. And those plateaus might last weeks, they might last months, they might last years. And then eventually you'll get another burst, right? And you'll go to another kind of level of mastery and kind of redoing the process over and over again. I just think we live in a time where our concepts of how long things should take are skewed. And I think if you really want to see what's true, you just look at nature. So no matter, well, like, let's say you plant a seed and you stood over that seed and you had the expectation that that seed was going to grow into a giant oak tree in 3 months. Like, is that an accurate assessment of reality? It's like, no,
Yeah.
dude. And, it's going to take perhaps a lifetime of watering, a lifetime of, kind of pruning, a lifetime of, making sure that the soil has good nutrients.
Yeah.
And, that animals that might come and eat it are kept away. And that, I think that hinders a lot of people's progress because they get discouraged too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and that I think became prevalent in around 2018, 2019, when that book, you introduced that book to me. And then I think even I didn't like it with work. And then I noticed we started getting into relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that it was prevalent there too. And I think I've done it's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
We're always a work in progress. But to now know that that's your quality, you have that in your brain I have that in my head with whatever I walk into.
Yeah, this is the beginning. And what's
Yes.
interesting though, because we still work together and we're partnered, is that we will still have conversations sometimes where it's like, hey,
Yes.
you remember how long it takes? And you're like, oh yeah, my bad.
Yes.
Right? Because you're a hard charger and you want things right now and you want outcomes immediately.
Well, here's what I think about that. That's interesting you bring that up. That I think with this process of what we do, that has been probably the one thing, which is because of when you make bad decisions or questionable decisions financially, the impact is immediate.
Yeah.
You will feel it immediately. So with that, relationships are a little bit different, but with finances, that's very tangible and in front of you when you make a bad move. And I did last year. I mean, we talked about it. I had a property that ended up costing me closer to six figures than 5, and that was a bad move. Yeah. And it's real and tangible. It's right in front of you.
Well, something that I think is interesting about what you just said is in order to get an accurate assessment of reality, we should look to systems that give immediate feedback.
Okay. Expound on that.
Well, the open market gives you immediate feedback. You could think your product's fantastic, you put it out there, and nobody likes it. You know what that means? It's not good.
It's not a good product.
We were on a call the other day, and somebody's pushing back on, what I was saying about media, and I'm like, well, the market is giving you feedback because you don't have any followers, you're not making any money. So whatever you're thinking and doing is not true. Now, we also live in a world simultaneously where we want everybody to feel good, so we don't tell them the truth. But systems that give immediate feedback are like nature. You think you could say affirmations that we can go in, negative 10-degree water and say I am warm and the universe keeps me warm and I am warm and I'm going to get through this, and you think that's going to actually happen? The immediate feedback is you're going to die of hypothermia. That's what's going to happen. Yes. So, we've talked about this before, that the amount of progress that somebody experiences is directly correlated with the amount of truth that they can withstand. And you should look to systems that give actual, immediate, unbiased, unfiltered feedback. One of them is the open market, and the second one is nature. And then you can see how things actually are. Not the way you would like them to be, not the way that you wish they were, but the way that they actually are. Yeah. And the more clear you can get on that, then you can make decisions in accordance with that, and that'll produce the outcomes that you want. So in other words, let's say me and you were having a conversation, and you're like, hey, bro, I think I got this listing presentation dialed in. I'm like, uh-huh. And I'm like, how many deals you do last year? And you tell me, and I'm like, okay, and how many came from listings? And I'm like, well, I appreciate the bravado. I appreciate the confidence. What I am aware of is that the marketplace is not supporting your conclusion.
What you're saying.
Yeah, your kind of assessment. It's not supporting that. Somebody has an idea about media. Hey, this is what I think is true. Okay. And how much money did you make from media last year? Well, nothing. Yeah. So then the marketplace is not supporting your kind of strategy or thought process behind that. You know what I mean? Yes. And I think that people respond to that type of feedback in two ways. I think because the environment is such where we no longer we just want people to feel good, so we don't tell them the truth. And as such, if people haven't had heavy doses of the truth on a regular basis, oftentimes they bristle or move away from it.
Yeah.
When we were sharing the other day, we were having a call and you were like, yeah, like, you know, it's so interesting to me, like, you know, you had some things happen last year in your life and you're like, yeah, you know, I picked this up and now I'm at like, I got like whatever it is, I don't know, $7-8 million worth of pendings at the moment. And I was like, yeah, but do you know why that is? And you're like, well, you know, I role play all the time. I'm like, no, that's not why it is. And you're like, what is it? I don't know, like, because for the last 8 or 9 years, 10 years, however long we've been in proximity to each other, we have had, I'd say probably 10 very uncomfortable, straightforward, down the pipe conversations with regards to the way you were thinking about something, with regards to perhaps a behavior, with regards to an assessment that just wasn't accurate.
Yeah.
And now you know that I would never say anything to you that wasn't in your best interest, but you also, unlike most people, didn't move away. And instead what you would do, I told somebody today, because somebody's like, oh, you know, I don't want to role play because I'm afraid of like somebody being hard on me. Let's say like me being hard on me. You know what I said to that person? I said, you know what? The best players want the smoke, bro. How can I get better? They want it. They like, hey, tell me, how did I mess up? How did I, what do I need to improve? Right. And, yeah, so like you're just like your experience and where you are now is a testimony to like what you put in your head matters. Proximity is enormous. People radically underestimate the value
it's so important.
Leadership.
So important.
And then being willing to withstand truth for extended periods of time, bro. You know, when we would talk, I'd be like, because I would say, Dan, like, and you know, I'm like, hey, bro, I mean this with love. And you know, when I say that, it's like,
something's coming.
Something's coming. Hammer's coming. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then, but what you would say is as I would say those things to you, you'll be like, okay, I'm listening. Where I told you on a call before, I'm like, if I was anybody else, you'd probably like want to fight me or punch me in the face. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But you know that it's like, okay, this is coming from a good place. And you sit back and you're like, wait a minute, before I get emotional, this is true. And what do I need to do to, you know, kind of improve this and move forward?
On one hand, I can count the people that I know with certainty their intention is an intention of help, growth, love.
Yeah.
And you're on that hand. So yeah, there's like 2 others that are not related to me that I can count, where I can be like, yeah, you know what, whatever, I know their intention is love for me and to help me, and I don't want the sugarcoat, I don't want the rope, just fucking hit me with it.
Yeah.
Hit it.
And the question is too, is for those listening, is how many people in your life do you have that will challenge your standards?
Yeah.
That will kind of call you out, that will say like, hey, I don't see it that way, bro. In the spirit of like, look, this isn't a malicious attack on you. This isn't me trying to be right, because what I'm ruthlessly attached to is the truth. What's true? Because I need to get to what's true in order to produce the outcome that I want.
Yes.
So, you know, not like standing with each other and like duking it out, like I'm going to be right and you're going to be right. Instead, it's like, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Let me ask you a question. As you've been kind of utilizing that mental map, what has the outcomes been?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I ask a question a lot. Is it working for you?
Yeah. So
it's a question I'll ask a lot.
So you'll notice, like, again, we were having a conversation with someone and they were like, you know, saying to me, and I'm like, well, can I ask you a question? They're like, yeah. I'm like, how much money do you make from doing what you're suggesting? And they were like, not much. I'm like, so, okay, why do you have an opinion then? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I mean, I guess so, but like, I'm all about, hey, how can we, what's the quickest, fastest way to get to the outcome? And, you know, it's only through triangulation. It's only through reading a lot. It's only through getting yourself in proximity, because iron sharpens iron, with people that are willing to kind of triangulate with you and challenge you, that you will improve. Otherwise you won't. Because my mom telling me she loves me just the way I am doesn't help me.
No. And there's days I want that.
I know.
There are days that I want that.
But it doesn't. It actually doesn't help me progress.
No. But when you're having a shitty day, I shouldn't say shitty. When I'm sick or like, you know, I just want to hear, you know what? I love you, hon. Like, I'll be like, all right, my mother's perfect for that. But reality, as far as, all right, this is what you're doing, stop fucking doing that and do this, she's not the one that I would go to.
Yeah,
for
because what's true is growth is uncomfortable.
Oh, yes.
It's radically, and it's painful. Because I have to realize I'm not as fast as I think I am. I'm not as smart as I think I am. I'm not as cool as I think I am. I'm not as, you know what I mean? Like, and the amount of internal energy and effort and will that it takes to willfully change, not out of pain, but out of progress, like with the intention of progressing. I mean, it's just really high, and you need somebody, and we all do, myself included. We need somebody who is there to push, because humans are the only species that do not grow to their fullest potential.
Yes.
You know, Jim Rohn, the famous Jim Rohn, would be like, hey, how tall will a tree grow? It's like as tall as it possibly can.
As tall as it can.
But humans don't do that. And,
No.
you know, I know as our relationship has evolved, you know, I began to cast a vision for you in terms of like the way that I see you, and that wasn't the way that you saw yourself.
No.
And I was like, hey, bro, you could be instead of like this tree, you could be a giant tree that provides fruit for like all these other things. And you're like, oh, really? Like, we don't mean? It's like, yeah, bro.
Bro, I have a book here of like just quotes that I've heard over the years, most of them from you. And right here, I have at the top of the page, a coach sees in you a coach sees the potential in you that you don't yet see in yourself.
Yeah. That's right.
And it's very true.
So it's casting that vision, but then equipping, pushing, cajoling, coaching, shoving sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, in each other. Like, I mean, just recently,
to this,
bro,
man.
Bro, we had a conversation just recently that was like that. Like,
Yes.
But it's like, yeah, it's required though in order to progress.
If you see this interview as successful and you want me to chop it up more with Aaron regarding other topics, leadership, media, you know, if you see bad behaviors agents have,
investing, yeah.
Come on, let me know. DM me or comment on these clips that we're going to put out, and let me know if this is beneficial for you. So. Well, what's up, brother? So what lead sources you working with?
I've only really mostly focused on expired, more so off-market stuff. Let's role play.
I'll be the seller.
All right, this is like really off the top.
Yeah.
Ring ring.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. This is